Actually, in fact, if you start doing things that could actually increase their feelings of hopelessness, right? You frantic, you're panicking, like, chill. That's why I shouldn't have said anything, right? Because you're doing too much, right? We don't need you to do too much. But what you could do is just be.
Welcome back to the podcast. I started this podcast as a way to help Black men in all aspects of our lives. Studies show on average we lose 2.8 years of our life when we're under heavy stress. And I think we can gain those 2.8 years back if we express ourselves healthily. Stick with me as I interview therapists, doctors, advocates, activists, and friends about how we can be better as Black men and as a Black community. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube and following us on Instagram and TikTok, you'll definitely want to do that. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Listen, y'all, we're back with another episode. We're here with Samara Bennett. Samira, you're a licensed mental health therapist.
Yes,
right?
A licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist.
Okay, and can you explain to people what is it that you do on a daily basis?
So I own a mental health private practice where I see clients one-on-one and basically get them from point A to point B. They come in, they let me know what their goals are, what their challenges are, and we build up a treatment plan that allows them to navigate those challenges, gain skills to help cope effectively so that they can maintain autonomy and really live life on purpose with intentionality.
And how long have you been doing this for?
Well, in private practice, I'm going on 5 years, but I've been in the mental health field for almost 20 years. So I have...
So you're a vet.
Yes, I have extensive experience working with multiple populations, whether it is with adolescents, inpatient mental health, dealing with individuals with SMI, serious mental illness, inpatient psychiatry, acute, as well as long-term placement. So to be able to provide them with skills and tools to be able to not be institutionalized long-term in state psychiatric facilities, as well as supervisor for emergency room services, residential treatment for adolescents, assisted living. So yeah.
So you do this?
I've done this. I'm doing this.
Okay. Listen.
And I love it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I appreciate you sharing all that. The reason why I ask is because I want people to know like what your background is so they understand what, what you're saying has substance behind it, right? So September is coming up. September is, like we were talking about, Suicide Prevention Month. And like I was mentioning to you before we did the episode, I was saying we don't really have an episode where we dive deep into what suicide is. I know people know what it is, but like, how do we navigate that, right? So first question I really wanted to ask you is, what are some of the common myths about suicide? And then why are those myths so harmful for us as Black men?
So there are a lot of myths and misinformation about suicide. One, people feel like the more that we talk about it, that it's actually going to increase people wanting to unalive themselves.
Right.
And that's just not true. If anything, it has an adverse effect, right? We talk more about it, then we have more people that are seeking out mental health treatment. We have more people starting to get curious, understanding feelings, putting language to what they're experiencing.
Right.
So that's really helpful for us to actually talk about it more.
Right.
Another myth is that people believe that it only happens to a certain group of individuals. It only happens to particular people. That is so far from the truth.
Right.
Suicide affects no matter your gender, no matter your race, no matter your socioeconomic status, no matter your age, right? So I actually just read an article, well, not just, a little while ago, regarding an 8-year-old boy in Chicago, Illinois, and he unalived himself, right? Dealing with peer pressure and bullying, right? So it's important for us to be able to have these conversations ongoing so that we can improve our education, our knowledge, and our awareness.
Right, no, absolutely. And then one of the things that you just said that stuck out to me a lot was you talked about it doesn't only happen to a certain demographic of people or certain people. I think I saw a study that said that suicide is either the leading cause or the second leading cause of death for Black men. Can you speak to why you feel like that's happening with us specifically?
Yeah, so we know that there is a stigma when it comes to Black men's mental health, right? And so even like just Black men expressing their emotions.
Right.
And because of that, right, you're taught to keep it in, be a man, be strong. and you are avoiding your emotions and your feelings. And when we avoid, it exacerbates anxiety and depression, right? And anxiety and depression is what leads to suicide, internal pain, internal distress, not knowing where to turn, because if I decide to turn, I'm not sure if I'm going to get the help or the resource that I need.
Right.
Or even being able to put language to that to even know, what am I experiencing? What is this?
Right.
Yeah.
So can we, now we get into the conversation. Can we talk about,
Let's go.
let's talk about the language, right?
Yeah.
Because I think for the longest time, I didn't have the language to actually be able to articulate what it was that I was experiencing. So I would experience anxiety and I wouldn't know that it was anxiety. I would just be like, yo, why am I sweating? Or like, why am I nervous?
Yeah.
Not knowing that I have social anxiety and I don't really like being around large crowds of people.
Right.
Right, because I've dealt with certain situations where growing up in New York, I've been robbed.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in situations where I almost got jumped, right? So like, I don't really like being around people because to me, when you're around a large amount of people, like there's a lot of random things that can happen and my mind starts going crazy. I'm like, yo, this person could be thinking this, they could want to do this, they could want to do that. And that creates this like level of social anxiety. So to get back to my question, how do we start to develop this language so that we can be able to articulate what it is that we're experiencing? And why does that even matter? Because I know there's some Black men right now that's thinking like, why does it even matter if I have the language to express what I'm feeling?
Well, it makes all the difference for you to have the language, because when you don't have the language, you just think that you are the only one experiencing it. Mm-hmm. You're not able to make sense of it, right? Mm-hmm. And you just want this pain to go away, right? And what is that? When we want the pain to go away, we actually remove ourselves, suicide. We actually isolate, right? And so when we don't have the language, it exacerbates ignorance, right? For lack thereof, the lack of the knowledge to understand what exactly is happening to us. So it's really important. What you just actually described, though, when you're talking about walking in the streets, you've been robbed, you've been jumped, right? And so your brain sees a lot of people and it wants to be able to escape. You just talked about the relationship between the nervous system and the brain, right? So your nervous system is impacted. It's always receiving information and data. And so past experiences inform our present moments. And so that nervous system perceives a threat, even though there is no threat, but it remembers the threat from when I was walking down the block and I got jumped, or I saw a group of people and I was unsafe because I got robbed, right? And the brain tells a story. We're not safe when there's a lot of people around. And so we really have to be able to tune in and reflect what's coming up in our bodies. A lot of people just think that it's a cognition thing, right? A thought thing. If I change the way I think, everything else will fall into place. But it's not only the way I change the way that I think, right? We change that story, but it also is understanding how I'm feeling. Yeah.
You in your bag right now.
What, am I in my bag?
Yeah,
okay.
You in your duffel right now. I ain't gonna lie.
You took me there.
No, listen. I really like that because that really just helped a lot. I really like having these episodes. I was just thinking about this before. I'm gonna go off on a tangent a little bit, but I was just thinking about this before we had the episode. I was thinking to myself, like, I really have the honor of being able to like sit down with professionals like yourself and have these like in-depth conversations about some of the things that may be impacting other Black men, but oftentimes impact me. And it gives me almost like, for lack of better words, a free therapy session. Because that is something that you would mention that in a session with somebody.
Yeah,
and
to
that,
educate them.
Exactly, and that's a revelation. I think that's what's so powerful about the platform, because people get to kind of have like, not necessarily a session, but they get to kind of get the insight of a session from a podcast episode. So I appreciate you sharing all that, because there may be a Black man right now that's like trying to rationalize, why does he feel that way? Like I just mentioned, right? And you saying that helps him to think, okay, I have something going on in my body, but yes, I can change the way I think about it, but I also have to understand, how do I feel about it? Right.
And how do I want to feel? So asking the right questions is really important. So again, the language, right? Us being able to speak about it, you being able to have this platform, being able to have conversations that are open, allow Black men to have the language of what's coming up in their bodies and their minds.
Right. Yeah. I love that. One of the things about suicide that I read in a book, I can't remember the name of the book, man. But I read in a book that there's like different levels or stages of suicide, right? And there's like suicide ideations, and then there's like if you have a plan and all that. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah. Can you break down like what that is so that people can understand?
Right. So actually, suicide ideations is having the thoughts of maybe I want to be here, maybe I don't want to be here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe I could do something, maybe I won't do something, but if I did do something, maybe this feeling would go away, right? Just the idea, the thought about it. And then suicidality is actually completion of it, right? And to be suicidal is I have a plan. I am going to do this. I know exactly how I'm going to do this. I am leaving notes. I know that there's going to be an action. So those are the different, right? We go from the ideation to suicidality. In between is when someone is suicidal.
So how would somebody know that a loved one of theirs is potentially struggling with like suicidal ideations or suicidality? Like, are there any like signs that they can pick up on to be able to figure that out?
So this is always a hard question, right?
I know.
Because it doesn't look a certain way, just like
Right.
we said that it doesn't only impact a certain group of people. So warning signs could look like, oh, all of a sudden this person is really hopeless and they used to have a lot of energy.
Right.
Wow, they're starting to give all their things away. They're saying goodbye. They're writing letters.
Right.
They're always crying. They feel sad, right? Something's drastically different. Then we realize, oh, it's a spectrum, because it could look like that, but then it could also look like the person that has it all together, that is always dressed to the nines, that is always smiling. There's a group of people, they're front and center, right? So I think of, what was that DJ's name? DJ Twitch.
Yes.
Of Ellen DeGeneres show, right? No one knew that was coming, right? Someone that is presenting well, has a fabulous job, celebrity status, always has a smile, always making jokes. And he decides to unalive himself. So I want to say that there's warning signs, but I think that if we have open communication and we make it a personal mission to educate ourselves on mental health, suicidality, putting language around it, that more people realize that they're not alone in their experience. Oh, they're able to recognize who has their back, who's going to be supportive if I do decide to say something. So warning signs is always hard. But I think if we normalize having a conversation about, oh, this could come up. You know, how are you feeling? Check-ins regularly. Like when you're speaking to your friends and your family, have you ever thought about that? Right. Some people are so afraid to ask the question directly. Have you ever thought about that? Did you ever have a plan about that?
Why are people afraid to ask the question directly? Why do you think people are afraid to have that
well, I think that it actually supports the myth that we were talking about before, right? That people feel like if I say something, oh, they might do it. No, it's very contrary. If I say something, oh, we can explore that together. Oh, I might give you an outlet to say, yes. I couldn't wait to say that. I couldn't wait to just have a relief of, actually, I have. People are afraid because they don't know what the outcome is going to be. And a lot of people don't know how to handle, if the outcome is yes, what do I do next?
Ooh, man. You know what's so interesting? I know you said there aren't like, or the signs look different for different people. But one of the things I definitely wanted to talk about was like my personal experience with dealing with suicidal ideation. I wouldn't say I was suicidal because suicidal, right? You said you had to have a plan, right? So I wasn't suicidal. I had suicidal ideations because I was dealing with a lot in college. I think a lot of us as Black men go through like depression in college, or just us as people go through depression in college, because there's so many different transitions that you're dealing with. I was dormant, gotta pay bills, right? Like, or at least the bills at that time that I had, right? I had to figure out like, how do I pay for college? I'm going through a breakup. So there's so many different things that are happening at the same time that led to me feeling like, man, I don't even want to do this anymore. And I remember thinking to myself like, yo, if God came down right now and asked me like, are you ready to go? I'd be like, yeah, let's go. And that, when I came to that realization, that's when I knew like there was something wrong, right? For lack of better words, because I had never felt like that before. I had never felt like, yo, I'm cool with just not being here. And so that's when I was experiencing like my suicidal ideations. And for me at that time, like my nails grew out longer because I wasn't taking care of my nails. I would always bite my nails. But at that time, like I didn't care anymore. But I would still present myself. It's interesting because I would still present myself when I was around people as if nothing was going on. And I was getting 4.0s. I was getting 4.0s. I was doing all my schoolwork. I was going to work, and I was still doing everything I need to do. But when I get home, I would be on the floor crying. I hated being alone. And so that's what it kind of looked like for me. And so I like the fact that you said having a personal mission of like educating yourself, but also not being afraid to have the conversations. Because I feel like if one of my friends had asked me at that time, like, yo, do you have suicidal ideations? Or you think about like, what are some of the things that you're dealing with when you're at home? It gave me the space to actually have that conversation.
Right.
So my question to you is like, let's say people are having that conversation or they start having that conversation. I think the next thing that people are afraid of, like you mentioned, is like, what do I do from here? Somebody says like, yes, I have had suicidal ideations or I do have a plan. Like, what should someone do if they've been informed that?
That's a good question. And I think that it's like two parts, right? Because if someone maybe thought about it and then have a plan, we would do two different things, right?
So let's do thought about it first, and then let's say if they have a plan next.
So if they thought about it, it's important to understand that you don't necessarily have to do anything. So I think that it's two different spectrums in regards to thinking about it and then actually actively having a plan. So if they thought about it, then it's not necessarily something that we have to do.
Right.
We actually, in fact, if you start doing things that could actually increase their feelings of hopelessness, right? You frantic, you're panicking, like, chill. That's why I shouldn't have said anything, right? Because you're doing too much, right? We don't need you to do too much. But what you could do is just be. Be present, be calm, actively listen, right? Listen to what they're saying, right? Get curious. Oh, well, what does that even mean for you?
Right.
What would that look like? What would be your reason for wanting to do that, right? Because most likely, it's like, I just want it all to stop. I want the pain to go away.
Yeah.
Is usually what we hear. Acknowledge their feelings, right? So really, because people just want to be seen, heard, valued, and validated, right? So just making sure that you see them as a human. I think it's okay for you to not do anything. You can just be there. You'd be surprised what your presence alone could do.
Yeah. I like that a lot because I had a friend that went through like an attempt. And I remember like getting a call like probably like maybe 9-10 o'clock, and everybody's rushing over there to get to him because we're all learning about this for the first time. So we all get over there, and we're trying to figure out, like, I guess everybody's trying to figure out, like, why are you, like, what's happening? Why are you doing this? So we take him to the car. We sit down with him. I'm talking to him. I'm like, yo, bro, what's good? What's going on? But I didn't treat, like, I'm not treating him like something's wrong with him. Or
like what's up?
I'm like, bro, what's good? Like, talk to me, right? And then eventually what ended up happening, he started explaining some of the things that he was dealing with and why he was feeling the way he was feeling and all that kind of stuff. But I think the most important thing that I think I did in that moment is exactly what you mentioned, is just being present and just giving him a space to just express, because he probably didn't have that.
Express yourself, Black man. Yes, let's go. Exactly. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. No, I appreciate this platform because it's needed.
I appreciate it.
Space to express yourself.
Absolutely. And I think because oftentimes we don't have that space, what ends up happening is, like you said, we internalize it, it exacerbates into something bigger. And then suicide, what I always tell people about suicide when I do talk about it, because I know how I felt when I was thinking about suicide. Suicide to me was a solution to a problem that I didn't have the solution for.
Right, exactly.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so because I'm depressed, I'm going through a breakup, I got all these other things that are happening, I'm like, yo, I don't have any solutions. The only thing that makes sense right now is suicide, because at least if I did that, I don't have these problems, right? And I think if we can really start to understand, like, okay, it's really problem and not having a solution to the problem for a prolonged period of time, and then suicide becoming that, like, okay, this could be something that I could do and I would not have to deal with these problems anymore.
Right.
And so, like, I really, again, like you mentioned earlier, I really like the fact that you talked about, like, practicing, like, learning about it and having the education around it, because these conversations, as people start to understand more about why people may be thinking about suicide, you can start to be able to be present when people are having those conversations about like, yo, this is what was happening. You can show up differently than, yo, you're selfish. You know, 'cause sometimes people say that, like, oh, you're selfish. Why would you do that? You have kids and
right. It's not even about that.
Yeah, why is that harmful for somebody to tell someone that's dealing with suicidal ideations or that's suicidal that they're selfish?
Well, because one, we don't even know what they're experiencing, right? And so telling them that they are selfish means that what they are experiencing doesn't even matter. Like, you're not even understanding about what's actually coming up for me. You're not even understanding or trying to be a safe space for me to explore those emotions that I'm experiencing. And so it can actually be really harmful. And when we talk about language that actually propels us to go in that direction, if you want someone to do it, that's a sure way to say it. Oh, okay, yeah, you're selfish, right? I might as well just be quiet and just end it all right now.
Can we talk about what are some other things that you feel like push people in the wrong direction? Like if I bring it up to you, what are some things that you think somebody should probably not do?
Tell them that they're weak. Because we hear that a lot, right?
Yeah.
That if you are experiencing that, or if you decide to do that you're weak. That's something that you should not do. You should really be able to express to them that it's important to let it out, to get it out, to speak up, because that actually is strength in regards to letting it out and being honest and open with what you're experiencing.
Right.
But letting someone know that they're weak or selfish are sure ways of getting an opposite reaction of what you want. Right. And the whole goal is to be preventative and not reactive. Right. We want to be able to take preventative measures, be calm, listen, engage in conversation, connect, right? We don't want to push them further away. And using that kind of language in regards to being selfish or you're weak is going to push them further away, to isolate and be alone.
Yeah, man. It reminds me, because when I was going through my experience with suicidal ideation, I remember I confided in probably honestly one person. And I know if her response was like, yo, you're selfish and weak, oh my God, bro. Yeah. So I couldn't imagine like confiding in somebody and then them saying that in response to me, like expressing how I'm feeling. Like it would honestly make me shut down.
Yeah, right. And when you shut down, you're just not shutting down physically, but you're shutting down emotionally and mentally, right? And what are we doing when we're shutting down? We're avoiding the true problem. We're avoiding the pain. And some people think that when we avoid that it just goes away.
Yeah.
No, it just lives in our body, right? Yeah. It just shows up as physical symptoms, right? It shows up as us being impacted and impairment in regards to our overall functioning, our daily functioning, the inability to be able to operate like we did previously. So avoidance and shutting down does not help what's coming up.
You know what's so, you know what's so interesting? I feel like for a lot of us as Black men, that is like our default. It's to like avoid it. If I have a problem and I don't know how to deal with it, I'm gonna avoid it and not think about it. And what you just mentioned is like avoiding it actually makes the problem worse.
Yeah, you're just stuffing it.
Right. So I guess my question is, what would you propose to a Black man that has something that he's going through right now? Instead of avoiding it, what are some potential solutions to a Black man that has probably never been to therapy,
right?
Hasn't probably done a lot of like self-reflection on what the issue is? Like what are some things that he could potentially do?
Yeah, I think self-reflection is really important. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And to help with self-reflection, it's really important to, if you feel like you don't have a person that you can speak to write it out, speak it out. Even, some of my clients, I recommend using your audio on your phone. Just talk, just get it out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or you can just write it out. I also recommend brain dumping. So it's not as formal as journaling, like having a prompt, but just, even if it doesn't make sense, just get it on the page. And then when you reread it, you're actually rereading it. It seems like you're rereading it from a third party, and you're able to make more sense of it than it all living in your head, feeling overwhelmed, feeling frustrated and shutting down because it's too much. Your brain is like, we have too many tabs open. I'm not doing any of this, I'm shutting down, right? So, but if I get it out, I'm able to make more sense of it.
Right.
I'm able to understand it. I'm able to have what we call catharsis, right? A release. And that's what really needs to happen.
Ooh, you know what that just reminded me of when you talk about writing it out? Like I remember when I was younger, I used to write essays for school. And they would always tell me the writing process starts with writing a draft. And you have your idea, write your draft out, and then when you have your draft, you figure out from the draft how you're gonna make your final essay. And that's what that kind of reminds me of, because I personally, I didn't really like the process of writing. So I needed the draft, because if I didn't have the draft, I wouldn't really be able to put everything together.
Right.
So like you just mentioned, like having it out on paper helps you to read it and really understand it from a different perspective, or at least be able to make sense of like all the things that you're experiencing. Right. Because a lot of times, like if I'm going through a heavy or stressful week, there's so many, like you just mentioned, like the tabs, there's so many different things that are coming up. It's hard to like figure out, what do I need to prioritize?
Right.
What do I need to do? What do I need to work on? So man,
now you just got an attitude.
Yeah, now I'm tight. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Now I'm tight. My girl come home, I'm like, I don't even want to talk about that. You know
exactly.
What I'm saying? So man, that's really interesting that you mentioned that, because man, I have like I mentioned to you, I have anxiety as well. And I think I have anxiety because...
Can I stop you for a minute?
Go ahead.
Because when people say, I have anxiety, I have depression, I have panic, right? You're holding it. It's not yours. You experience it.
Go ahead, correct me.
You're an I just want to encourage you to just be mindful of the words that you say, right? I don't have anxiety, but I experience anxiety. When I'm in certain situations, I notice that anxiety is here. It's really important to frame that.
Let me fix that now.
Okay.
And we're gonna keep that in just so that they have it. Okay. So I experience anxiety, right?
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I feel like I experience anxiety is because there's so many different things that I have in my head that I need to do. And then I experience anxiety because I'm like, how am I going to get all of this stuff done? And if I get all of this stuff done, am I going to get it done the right way, quote unquote? And so one of the things that's been helpful for me is, do you know what like a sprint board is?
Sprint board?
Yeah.
No?
Okay. So I went to school for computer science, right? So in software, there's these things called sprints. Like tech companies have these things called sprints. What a sprint is basically like a certain period of time that's allotted to get a certain amount of work done.
Okay, yeah.
So a sprint board is like you have a board of work that you're going to get done in a certain period of time. It's just basically a to-do list.
Yeah.
It's another way of saying to-do list, right? So I have a sprint board that's basically for my life. So every week I have a list of things that I'm going to try and do, separated out in categories, and like, what am I going to do? All the potential information that I may need to do that thing. And that's really, really helped.
Perfect, yeah.
The other thing that's really helped me too recently is I have a calendar, and now I'm setting up blocks of time inside of my calendar to do certain things from the sprint board, right? So if I know I need to like pack for a trip, I'll set up a block of time in my calendar to pack. I'll set up breaks in between as well, so I know like, because another thing that I have is like, I don't like working on one thing for a specific amount, like for a long amount of time. So I've learned with myself, like if I'm doing something for more than an hour, I'm probably gonna stop doing it. So if I don't set up a break, like every like 30 minutes or like 45 minutes or after an hour, I'm gonna find a way to make the break myself, whether it's through my phone or going somewhere else or whatever, right? So I've learned through practice, like, okay, the sprint board helps me to keep track of the things that I need to get done. And then making time to do it in my calendar helps me to actually get it done so that I don't have to deal with the anxiety of not doing it or experience that anxiety, right? So not saying I don't experience anxiety all the time, but I wanted to mention that as something that may help people, because I know there's some Black men right now that have like so much stuff that they feel like they need to do. And may not have a process for how they get it done. And that in itself creates a certain level of anxiety, because it's like, damn, I gotta do this for this person. I gotta do this for myself. I gotta take care of this and that. And you got this, like, I used to have this long to-do list on my whiteboard. And every time I looked at it, it would give me anxiety.
Exactly. You don't know where to start. It's too much. Your brain is inputting it all at one time.
Yes, exactly. So I didn't have a process. I remember talking to my therapist, and she saw the board behind me. I'm like, man, look at all this stuff I gotta do. She's like, you know, that board has been there for months. Maybe you should just erase all of it.
Right.
And I was like, nah, but there's so much stuff that I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now me having my process has really like helped me with that. And just being able to say no to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think it's so important for people, especially us as Black men, to be able to say no?
Well, you just described it. If you don't say no, or if you don't partialize and prioritize, you're going to end up burnt out and shutting down. You're going to end up overwhelmed because it's just too many things. And what you described before when you talked about like your sprint board is you getting it out.
Right.
Right. And making sense of what's coming up for you and knowing that we're not going to do all these things at one time. I think a golden question is to ask, what can I do first? And then what will I do next?
Right. So prioritizing the list of things that you need to do.
Yes. I always say partialize and then prioritize. Like when you said that you put them in, I call them buckets.
Okay.
But putting them in different buckets, right, is partializing and then prioritizing. Well, if I start with this bucket, what needs to be done first out of this bucket? Let's get that done. Then I'm going to go to the next bucket. Okay, what needs to be done out of here? And then I get that done. And actually, when you do that and you checking it off, I'm an old school person. My partner is trying to get me to be more new school, but I'm an old school pen and paper, right? But as you check it off, it actually increases the momentum and the motivation for you to go to do the next thing, right? But if I think of all those things at one time, my brain just gets really overwhelmed. So I got to ask, what do I need to do first?
I like that. Creating a momentum to get things done. That's really good. All right, I'm interrupting this podcast episode to let you guys know to leave a review on the podcast. Please, if you are listening to this episode and you're finding value in this episode, you're enjoying the conversation, or you've enjoyed a previous episode or conversation, and it's safe to operate your phone right now, please leave us a review. Your review is a free and easy way to support us, and it helps us reach more people like you. We're on a mission to build a stronger, more connected Black community, starting with Black men. And you can help us on that mission by taking a minute out of your day to leave a review. Your review helps us generate more listeners, which in turn generates more revenue, allowing us to expand the platform even further. So please take a few seconds out of your day. I know you're busy. I understand. I know you're doing a lot, but it will help us greatly if you would just take a few seconds out of your day to leave a review right now. Did you leave a review yet? All right, let's get back to the episode. One of the things I also wanted to ask you too, because I know there's some Black men that are like, we talked about like expressing and like opening up to people and like, you know, letting people know some of the things that you're experiencing, but there are some men that may not have that, right? So like what are some things that they can do in their situation? I know we talked about journaling, but if they're experiencing like suicidal ideation or in the suicidal stage, what can they do? What are some resources that may be available to them to help them with that?
Well, suicidal, you go into the nearest emergency room or dial in 988, which is National Crisis Line. And there are crisis counselors on the end of it. As a therapist, I've used it to help clients and encourage clients to use it. It can be really helpful in regards to understanding what to do in the moment and creating a plan of what I need to do should something arise. And also connecting with resources that I could utilize right here, right now. So 988 is good. Also, NAMI is the National Association of Mental Illness. And they have locations. They are phenomenal. I've been utilizing their services since I've been in the mental health field. It's been really, really helpful for clients. NAMI is really, really good. And I'm trying to remember the suicide prevention line. I believe it's 800-273-TALK. But if I'm wrong, we could put it in the show notes. But the national, you can always Google it too. National Suicide Prevention Line is really helpful as well if you are feeling suicidal at this time.
Yeah, I've used 988 too before, because I've had sometimes when we post about certain things, we have brothers that will DM and they are like going through it. I'm like, listen, bro. I can't help you as much as you, I can't give you the help you need through DMs, right? And so like what I'll do in that instance, like I've done it like once or twice, I'll call 988 And sometimes like if somebody DMs you, you don't know where they are. So the first thing I need to do is, because if I call, where you at, right? So like I called 988 and I realized like I called 988, that's for my local area.
Right.
I'm like, yo, I can't help somebody that's in Seattle.
Right.
I'm like, all right, cool. So I call 988 and I'm like, okay, what is the number for like the Seattle crisis center or area? How can you route me there? Either they can route you there sometimes or they'll give you the number. So in that instance, I got the number, called that location up. And then I asked him for like some centers or areas that could potentially do like, 'cause what he needed was like, he needed to talk to somebody, but he also didn't have enough money to like for sessions. So this is like typical situation. So called that area in Seattle. They gave me like a few centers that were near his area that like did free sessions or like intakes or whatever. And then I was able to give him a couple of resources from there. So for anybody that like, you know, you either get DMs or you know somebody that's like in a different state or area, you can call 988 and have them give you like the local numbers and then work your way from there.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've definitely done that before. So like when you mentioned 988, I'm like, yeah, I've used 988.
Very helpful.
It's definitely very, very helpful. Man, I appreciate you so much. This has been a really good conversation so far about like some of the things that you can do and what you can do to make sure that you're like checking in. So along the lines of like, let me ask you this, would you advise people to like check in every so often and have these conversations? Like, do you think that's a good thing to do? Like, let's say I have a group of friends. How would I check in with my bros to see if one of them is like having suicidal ideations? Like, what would be one of the things that I could potentially do? You think I should just come out and just ask it, or is there something else?
Why wouldn't you come out and ask
Okay.
it? Why are we avoiding? Right? If we are sensing that anyway. But I always ask, you know, how are you feeling? And I think that people are so naturally inclined to say, good, all is well, I'm all right, I'm okay. And so even during my sessions, we'll start off with that. I'm like, no, you didn't hear. I said, how are you feeling? What's the feeling? Because I'm okay is not a feeling word, right? So am I sad? Am I overwhelmed? Am I frustrated? Am I feeling despair?
You go ahead.
I lost my train of thought.
Sad, frustrated, despair.
Right, sad. Are you sad? Are you frustrated? Are you despair? Even like I'll bring up the feelings wheel, right? So that you can kind of expand, get language on what actually are you experiencing. And so even with your friends and family, you do it with my friends and family all the time. No, what's coming up? You're saying I'm good. What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Right.
And then we can kind of have an open conversation, and that's how we build platforms, experiences where we can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. And then also modeling.
Yeah.
Right. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I know it looks like I'm dealing with a lot. It looks like I'm doing a lot, but I am feeling anxious. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Right. And being honest about that. And that actually models other people and let other people know, oh, you know, I've been stressed. I've been feeling overwhelmed. I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
So being honest, and then it starts with you.
Yeah. I like the modeling thing. One of the things that, I have a couple of things based on what you just said. I got to figure out which way I want to go. I'll start with the modeling. So one of the things that we do with the platform, I think the model that we have is called leading with vulnerability. So what that means is like, I'll share what I'm dealing with. And then that hopefully creates a space where other people see that and they're like, okay, I've dealt with that as well. And I don't feel crazy anymore for dealing with that. Right. So leading with my experience of, you know, my experience is my vulnerability to create a space where other people feel comfortable being vulnerable. But I like that you mentioned that we should just come out and just have that conversation and say like, yo, how are you feeling? Right. And don't accept what I call it is the short answer. So like I ask my bros, yo, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. Everything's good. I'm like, bro, nah, give me the long answer. Right. So I like saying that because what that forces the person to do is think about like, okay, what's really going on?
Right.
Like, nah, I got time, bro. Because I think oftentimes what ends up happening when you ask somebody how they doing, they assume, because we ask it so much, they assume that you're not even listening to the response.
Exactly. That's
right. So it's just, I'm good. Right. But then when you say, nah, I want the long answer, it's like, oh, okay, you actually want to hear what I have to say. And I think that's what happens for a lot of us as Black men, is like, we think we're going to burden somebody by expressing what we're experiencing. because we've been holding it for so long and we know how much it burdens us. So we're like, if I let this go and I talk to Samiyrah about it, she gonna break all the way down because ain't no way. You know, if I go talk to my girl about all this stuff,
Right.
she either gonna break all the way down, she gonna think I'm weak. You know what I'm saying? So it's like all these things we have going on in our heads that make us get to the point where we're like, just don't say anything, just shut down.
Right.
So man, I really like you saying, no, that's not a feeling word.
Yeah. What's
and
going
another
on?
and another way of saying that is like, give me the long answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it shows that you're actually willing to listen and you want to have that conversation. I think a lot of us are looking for somebody to like just make the extra effort. Because I've seen conversations online where people will talk about like men will express that, you know, when they hear somebody talk about like, or ask them how they're feeling, they don't even want to share it because they feel like that person doesn't even really care in the first place.
Right. Right.
And yeah, it's just, it's hard because I think in some instances that is the case, but there are a lot of men that have like, cause I see it all the time. We get Black women that will DM us like, yo man, I got this brother that I really love and he just won't open up. How do I get him to open up? I'm like, you can't really, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. And you know, when it comes to relationships, that's a whole nother story too, right? But it's important I would ask, you know, well, are you opening up? Right? Sometimes women want the man to be really vulnerable, but they got their guards all the way up. I'm waiting for you. You not saying anything? I'm gonna say, again, we have to be that model. And usually you're in a relationship, your relationship is a reflection of who you are.
Ooh.
Right? So if I am presenting in a certain way, I may get something different. So
Right.
I would do some self-reflection of myself. How am I showing up? Am I being vulnerable? Am I being completely honest?
Right. Nah, that's good. That's good. I like the mirror and like the reflection thing there because I always hear that all the time, and it's so true, man. It really is so true. Have you heard people say like your relationship is a reflection of what you need to work on too?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your partner will show you exactly what you need to work on. Your partner will let you know. I'm gonna try not to look over there, but your partner will show you exactly what you need to work on. And if you're not self-aware or intentional yourself, you'll completely miss it. You'll completely miss the opportunity to connect, to communicate, to build with this person, because what they're showing you is exactly what you can build upon.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Your areas of need, your areas of work. Because some people go into relationship, nothing wrong with me. It's all you. No, it's always us. And what do we both need to do so that we can both elevate and continue to connect?
Man. We're gonna go off on the sidebar real quick and talk about relationships real quick. This is just a sec before we go back into everything else. Because you just brought some stuff up. I'm thinking about it like right now. Man, Naima has like, I love Naima to death. That's my girl, right? I love Naima to death. But if, like you mentioned, if I didn't peep the certain things that I had to work on in order for like us to work out, bro, we would not be together right now because there was moments in our relationship where I was like, man, I don't know if I want to deal with this right now, bro. And it's not even like she was doing it. She wasn't even really doing anything crazy. It was nothing crazy that was happening. It's just the fact that I had to do some extra work.
There we go.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I knew that there was extra work that was being required. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this relationship because I don't want to have to do the extra work.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to be patient. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to have to wait for like what the next stage is going to look like. Let's do it all right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get it all. Let's make it all. I didn't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But that's what was being mirrored. That's what was being mirrored back to me. It's like, yo, bro, you got to work on your patience. Why? I would have sessions with my therapist, and she'd be like, why does it need to happen right now? I'd be like, because I said so. Because I want it to happen right now. You know what I'm saying? And so it really made me realize like exactly what you just mentioned about the reflection and the mirroring thing, that is so true, man. And like you said, if you are not like doing the self-reflection and like actually trying to understand where you need to work on yourself, you will always make it a them thing. Cause that's what I was doing for the longest. I was like, yo, there's something wrong with her. Why we always got everything? We gotta wait for everything. No, like something's wrong with her. And I was making it a her thing. I'm like, nah, bro. Cause what I really did that really helped me to realize like, okay, there's some stuff that you gotta work on yourself. I took myself out the situation. I was like, yo, replace you with somebody else. Would somebody else look at this situation differently? Would they respond to it the same way you're responding to it right now? And now I realized like, okay, maybe there's a way in which I'm approaching this situation that's making it out to be this thing for me. Because there's probably other people that will be in the same situation as me right now and they would have no problem with it at all.
Right.
In fact, I talked to certain people and they're like, I actually wouldn't even want to do that right now.
Right, just wait, bro.
Yeah, they're like, bro, what? You're actually crazy. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Right? So like, so it just really made me realize like there's a lot of things that I actually like, there's a lot of things that were coming up for me that I actually needed to work on, but I would have made it a her thing if I didn't actually sit down with myself and realize like this was being mirrored back to me and something that I need to work on.
Right. And the change doesn't happen until the person is accountable, right? Because I can look in the mirror all day and see all the things, but if I'm not willing to take accountability, like, oh, this is my stuff showing up in this thing, then nothing will ever happen, right? We don't get to evolve as a couple, as a partnership, because I'm not willing to take accountability, or he's not willing to take accountability. They're not willing to take accountability, whatever it may be. So when I used to do a lot of couples work. I no longer do couples work, but I used to do a lot of couples work. No, there's no reason why. You just expand, you grow, you explore different modalities and such. But there's always the two people that are in the relationship and then the thing. So there's always three parties in the relationship. And for a lot of people, they always think it's two parties. It's us against each other and we ready to go at each other when you both need to put on your gloves and go at this thing collectively. So it's always, what is the thing that is the issue? Not what is your issue or my issue. What is this issue? And how do we find a solution to this issue? It's not either one of us, but what's this issue?
I really like how you said that just now. Because I've heard that in different ways, but the way you just said that really drove that home for me, because you said there's three parties. That's so good. That is so good. I'm calling Naeem after this. I'm like, babe, what's the third party in our relationship?
Yes, exactly. Come on, use the tools in real life. Let's go. Exactly.
I was saying, babe, there's a third party in our relationship.
It's not you. It's not me.
Right.
What's the thing that we got to focus on?
Nah, I like that. Next conversation, we have a little debate. I'm going to say, listen, Samiyrah told me, it's not you, it's not me. There's a thing here.
Yes.
What's the thing?
Powerful.
I like that. I like that a lot. I know we're talking about romantic relationships. I want to get into like platonic relationships, between men. Because I feel like oftentimes us as men, we don't have like deep friendships. Like we have friendships, we got bros. I go to, if I call my bro up and I want to go to the bar or whatever, or go chill, we'll go hang out and and talk. But we'll talk about sports. We're not going to really dive too deep into like how I'm feeling, how he's feeling, that kind of thing. How do you feel like men can cultivate deeper relationships, and why is that important in the context of like suicidal ideation and suicidality?
Yeah, well, in regards to I can't say the word.
Well,
in regards to suicidality, it's important to have connections. It's important to have community, right? That's when healing happens. And it's hard because men have been taught to, hey, what's up? Let's talk about the game, right? Keep it very surface, because if I talk too deep about my emotions, then I'm simping, or I ain't I'm not going there, right? But we can ask deeper questions. If we truly want to be able to establish relationships, then we will start getting curious about exploring, deepening our connections that we have.
Right.
And that starts by just asking questions.
Right.
People go so much off assumptions.
Yeah.
And if I do this, they're going to, like, you played out the whole story. I want to know what the fact is of that story. So one of the things that I always ask my clients, or I ask people, that what are the facts Because we going off, we're having emotional responses to a story that we created. It's called assumptions. What are the facts? What's actually going on? And we don't know the facts until we ask questions, until we just see what's actually happening. And then we can come to a solution, or we can come to theory understanding from actually doing the thing, exploring more.
So you're saying for us to build deeper relationships with other men, we got to just have deeper conversations.
You have to have deeper conversations.
Right.
And if you're watching this, then it's really important for you to make a commitment, right? Because with awareness, we have opportunity to modify our behaviors. Right. So we're not just watching this to watch this, but we're watching this to gain knowledge, to implement change, and really be able to do something different, change the narrative the narrative that has always been, right? So I think that it's really important for us to be able to ask questions. Ask questions that cultivate conversation.
No, I like that a lot. I like that a lot because I have like multiple friend groups, and I think there's really one or two friend groups that I can go to and like I can really like have deep conversations with. The rest are like really surface level, and it's not that, you know, I don't want it to be deeper. It's just that there's just certain blockages there. But with the groups that we have deep conversations in, it's because like we'll start with one conversation about something, and then everybody will see like how people respond, and then it creates like you talked about earlier with the to-do list, but it creates something like a momentum where it's like, okay, cool, I can actually have these conversations in here because we just talked about his son crying about his girl the other day, and nobody was like laughing at him or anything. So I can actually come in here and talk about being depressed because I know nobody's gonna feel some type of way. Unfortunately, what ends up happening though is certain conversations are brought up in groups, and what will happen is there will be an adverse reaction or like a negative response. So like, let's say I bring up, man, I just went through depression, and somebody in the group is like, man, you pussy. Like now I'm like, oh hell, I'm never bringing this up. But then also other people in that group see that and they're like, oh yeah, this is not a space where I can feel comfortable. So what would you say to a man that's like, because I've seen this before. I've seen men that have like said, okay, you know, because I see these questions, you know, I see what you're doing with the platform, but I tried this with my friend group and it didn't work. It didn't work out. Like, what would you say to him that like has struggled with the friend group that he has? Like, what are some things that he could potentially do?
Yeah. So I think what's important, right, when we talk about making a vow in order to be able to make new decisions or ask different questions when we're gaining the knowledge, your friend says, oh, you pussy. That is great opportunity to educate, right? It's not, okay, just shut down, because then we leave him out.
Ooh, okay.
We have great opportunity to educate. It's pussy because I want to be able to express myself. You never felt sad before or frustrated?
I like that.
Yeah, you never felt hurt or betrayed, right? Giving them the language, because they don't have the language, they have the ignorance. And so as we learn more, there's a due diligence for us to be able to educate the people that are in our group. He doesn't know. He has no idea until you put him on.
Right. I like that. We got to grab that as a clip. I'm just going to make sure I say that right now. But now, because listen, sometimes, you know what I'm saying? If I leave it up to them, they going to grab certain clips. But I'll make sure y'all grab that clip, because I'm saying to grab that clip specifically because I really want to post that, because I really was expecting a different answer. I'm going to tell you what I was expecting. I was expecting you to say, oh, just go find new friends.
So you created a story in your head.
I found the facts.
What are the facts? Here we go. I love learning in real time. It's excellent.
I had to find the facts. I said, let me ask this question anyway. Let me just see where we're going. But now I really like that answer, because I'm going to steal that. Next time somebody tell me, yo, bro, I can't do this because my friend, I'm gonna be like, yo, bro, nah, but what did you say in response? Right? Because that really matters.
Yep.
And I know, like, there's certain situations where I would have that response. I'll be like, yo, bro, what's wrong with me crying about that? Or what's wrong with me dealing with this or that, and responding in a certain way? Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And then it creates a space where we can now have the conversation for everybody to get educated.
Exactly.
You hitting. I know you was in here earlier talking about you dealing with this and dealing with that.
It's
You
true.
was
We still power through. We
No,
make it
I love it.
happen.
I love it. I love it. I love it for sure because you really, I really like that. I'm being so honest with you.
Oh, good.
I don't. There's not many times in a podcast episode where I will literally say we got to grab that as a clip. We definitely have to grab. And I don't care what it does, like numbers wise, engagement or anything like that. I just think it's a really good mindset shift because we so often like when we don't get the response that we want. Again, we go into the avoidance, the shutting down thing. And what your response was like, is instead of avoiding it, tackle it head on.
Right.
Like, okay, somebody didn't give you the response that you want. Now is your opportunity to then, again, go back and knock on the door, basically.
Right.
But we don't like doing that because it's like, well, I gotta, you know what I'm saying? Why I gotta go and still have the conversation with, he basically just dubbed me. So now he's a dub.
Someone has to be the leader in vulnerability, right? That's what you said.
Listen, you out here, I gotta get you a shirt. Earlier you was like, listen, express yourself, black man.
Yeah.
Now you're saying, listen, I gotta get you a shirt, man. I gotta get you a shirt. Nah, I love it, man. So we talked about identifying the language, right? How do when we identify the language, how does that help us to understand like how these like emotions, behaviors, and everything that we experience, like how that all connects and creates what we may be feeling?
That's a good question. I love that you actually are aware that it's all interwoven together, right? Because we can have a thought, right? So when we talk about like assumption, like we said before, right? We can assume that something's going to happen. Therefore, our body has already developed an emotion from that thought that leads us to behave in a certain way, right? You had the thought that I'm gonna answer this question anyway, even though I already know the answer, right? The emotion is like, whatever, let me just have her answer this question. Behavior is like, okay, that reinforced the thought. However, there was an interruption, right? Because I didn't give something that solidified that thought. Oh, now I have a different emotion that had a different outcome, a different behavior because that original thought wasn't reinforced.
Right.
And so being able to understand that how I feel impacts how I think, that impacts how I behave, that reinforces that thought is really important. There's something in psychology that talks about how the brain fires is how it will wire, right? So the things that I think about, the things that come up for me, how my thought process is the cycle that I will continue to be in unless I have new knowledge, new understanding, and I'm able to form new forms of thinking that we call new neural pathways that I'm able to build, that I will have a different thought that will lead to a different emotion, that will lead to a different behavior. So just being able to understand that it is all encompassed. It's not just reframing my thought, but it's understanding that there is a link.
We go back to the link.
Yeah.
The link between the physical and the mental, or what we're actually experiencing. Ooh. What's some steps that we can take to get better at that? Like just identifying those things, because I think a lot of us as Black men, we just don't have a process for getting good at that. And I think when we don't have a process for like practicing it, getting good at it over time, like it just becomes something that we either don't do or don't do well.
When you say getting good at identifying the thought, or
getting good at like the entire process that you just mentioned, like identifying the emotion, the feeling, the behavior, and like how they're all interwoven together. Like how will we start to like identify that within ourselves?
Well, a lot of self-reflection, I think, is really important, and it's going to go back to acknowledging the feelings, like really taking into account. Maybe you don't have to wait for someone to ask, how are you doing? You're asking yourself, what's up with me?
Right.
What am I truly feeling?
Right.
What do I need?
Right.
Who do I need, or what do I need to connect with in order to make me feel my best right now?
Right.
So I'm always a person that's going to encourage asking questions and asking the right questions to do self-exploration.
Right.
Because what we don't explore, it gets stored in our body. Right. And so we want to be able to explore okay, what thought am I having? What is that triggering for me?
Right.
Okay, maybe that's reinforcing the way that I'm showing up in this experience.
Yeah.
What do I want to do differently? How do I want to show up?
Yeah.
And if I can define how I do want to show up, what are the steps that are going to take me to get to how I want to show up? What's the first thing that I need to do?
You know what I feel like will come up for a lot of Black men when they start doing that? Anger, resentment, potentially sadness, but that's masked with anger.
Yeah.
So how does a man that's like, when he's practicing these things, he's a lot of anger and sadness is coming out. How does he start to process that? Because I think a lot of times for us, we run from processing or self-reflection because we don't want to deal with the actual feeling. We don't actually want to feel the anger or the sadness, because if I feel the anger, I'm not sure how I would process that. Or if I feel the sadness, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to stop crying. So how do I?
Yeah, that's so good. No,
you get what I'm saying? Like,
no, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, like how do I deal with that?
Yeah, so really being able to know that no matter how deep the feeling is, the feeling eventually stops. So the feelings that we experience are a moment in time.
Right.
And so something that I always say is that you're allowed to have a moment. You don't have to stay there. Right? So knowing that you have that option, but in order to get through it, you're going to have to feel it. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You can't go around it. There's not an alternate route. Like, we have to go through it we have to feel it in order to actually get through it. And so what I will say is feel the anger, get mad. Yeah, get mad, be bold, get angry, and know that anger is only for a period of time.
Right.
After anger, sadness might be there.
Right.
Yeah. And then after sadness, we might realize, oh, it's grief. After grief, right, we might have some acceptance of what is.
Right.
Right. We might begin to be more hopeful after the acceptance.
Right.
We might have a more understanding and clarity. We may start having some self-compassion about what we're experiencing. You see that there's a journey, there's steps.
Right.
So it's not just anger and it stops at anger. Know that I'm allowed to be angry, but I know that anger is not the final destination if I don't want it to be.
Ooh, man.
Yeah.
Clip it up.
Yeah.
Clip it up. I need that clip. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. Listen, I'm gonna just tell them straight up because I like that. I think we're running from the feeling, but we don't realize like it is a temporary feeling.
Yep.
And in order to get to where we actually want to be, like, because a lot of times we're avoiding because we think, we avoid because we're trying to skip doing the work. Honestly. If I avoid my anger, I can just go straight to acceptance. That's what we just assume is going to happen, right?
Is that true?
That's what we assume.
What are the facts?
That's not the fact. That's not the facts. But that's what we assume. Like, that's what's mentally going on. It's an irrational thought, but that's what's mentally going on.
Yeah.
If I avoid this situation, I don't deal with my anger or sadness, I can go straight into acceptance. I don't care. How many times do we say that? Like, something happens, I don't really care. I don't even care about that. Because we're trying to skip through the entire process of dealing with everything to get straight into the acceptance. But like you just mentioned, if we actually do the self-reflection and deal with the anger will eventually subside, go into something else like sadness, grief, whatever the case may be. And then we can go through our process and maybe a little bit longer, but it's a lot more healthier that way because we're not gonna have something we're internalizing that then it exacerbates and leads to this big emotional outburst or whatever it is that we're dealing down the line.
Right. And if you team up with a professional,
yes,
or if you are vulnerable about what you're experiencing with someone else, it might not be that long, right? Sometimes people feel like, I got to be in therapy forever. And it's like, no, you may be in therapy for this season. Even that has an end. That has a beginning, middle, and end. Well, if you're working with a good therapist, it should have a beginning, middle, and end. It should not be something that is ongoing. I mean, you can have a coach, you can have a spiritual advisor and things like that. But if we're talking about a therapeutic process, this is something that is treatment plan oriented. There's a beginning, middle, and an end.
Right.
So even understanding that maybe the journey doesn't have to be so long if I have language to it, different skills that I can exercise, and I develop effective and healthy coping skills, might be shorter than I thought it was going to be. And I might have a healthier way of living that actually makes me to live life on purpose, to be intentional about how I step in some of my worlds, my experiences, and my relationships.
Earlier, you mentioned something that we didn't get to touch on too much, and I want to go back to it. You talked about prevention versus like reaction. Is that correct? What is the difference between the two, and why is it so important for us to invest in like preventative measures?
Well, preventative measures versus reactive. So preventative is something that I do beforehand to make sure that I'm setting myself up well. I'm taking care of all parts of me so that I can make sure that I'm meeting all of my needs.
Right.
Reactive is I am waiting until something happens. Now it's a catastrophe. Now I'm in crisis and everything is even bigger than what it was before.
Right.
And so when we instill preventative measures like speaking about it, reducing the stigma, silencing the shame, then we are able to actually decrease the amount of intensive treatment that might be needed versus being reactive that might require a lot more extensive treatment and services and actually extend symptoms, right? Symptoms might have worsened because we are more reactive than versus getting it on the front end and recognizing how we could prevent it.
Right. Do you feel like men can deal with suicidal ideations or like suicidality due to not having enough preventative measures? Or like, do you feel like it can happen regardless if you have preventative measures in place or not?
Both.
Both.
Same both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't say like if you have preventative measures that it may not happen.
Right.
But the idea is that if it does happen, my relationship is different with it.
Right.
Right. If it does happen, it doesn't automatically turn into a crisis. If it does happen, I now have the tools, I now have the language, I now have the plan of what I can execute should something occur.
What are some preventative measures then that we can implement as Black men to help us with whatever it is that we're dealing with? Let's say we're dealing with like work stress or anxiety, stress from having to deal with being a financial provider or protector for family, like just the normal things that we go through. What are some preventative measures that we could potentially put in place that may help us to navigate those things?
Being honest with what you're experiencing. I think that is most important. And if you're not ready to do that with someone else, do it with yourself, right? It's okay. You know, you might tell someone else that you're good, but when you go into the mirror after you're showering, like, I'm not good.
Right.
I'm not okay. What do I need? Preventative measures, also getting it out, right? So like we said, if you're not ready to speak to someone else, I've seen substantial progress with people, I'm telling you, just talking it into their phone, in a notes app of their phone, just getting it out, right? You have a drive home from work. Before you get out, maybe instead of scrolling, you're just talking, just letting it out, get it out, speak it, put words to it. And then it's actually, you know, dictating exactly what you're saying. You can look at it then, or you can look at another time, but it needs to be released. So I think that those are two preventative measures that could be really helpful.
I like that. I like that a lot. I like the notes and just speaking it out thing, because I remember seeing, I think we posted an article a while back about like how much average time a year a man spends in the bathroom. And I know it sounds weird, right? But
I'm just intrigued.
No, but the reason why we posted that article is because a lot of times for men, the bathroom becomes like a safe space for them in the home. Right? Like if you're living, especially if you have a wife and kids or whatever the case may be, like you probably have a shared room, then the kids have a room, you have a living room, like every room is shared, except for when you go to the bathroom. Right. And so like the bathroom becomes like, okay, this is a space where I spend the most time to get away from everything. Right? And so what you just mentioned about like the preventative measures, it reminded me of like the bathroom and like going to the bathroom as a space to like just get a reprieve from like all the things that we may be dealing with. So I would say like finding a space is a really important thing, especially at home, because we're spending so much time at home. And the bathroom could be that space, but for other men as well is the like coming home from work and just sitting in the car. So like using their phone and actually like speaking out the things, that's a space and where they can do that before you go in the crib and like you have to deal with all the stuff that's gonna happen as you get into the crib. Like take your phone out and start talking about some of the things that you're dealing with. If you don't want to talk about it, you can write it out. Like, so I think that's really, really helpful. Like the same thing that you talk about, having like that kind of like that draft, so that you can get out the things that you're feeling and start to make sense of them. Like I think that is along the same lines as that. Man, what would you say to the Black man right now that's listening to this episode that it really resonated with him? He may or may not be dealing with suicidal ideations, but he's just going through a lot right now. He's like, it's heavy. Right? what would you say to him? Like, you can give him some words of encouragement, some resources, whatever comes to mind for that man right now that's listening to this episode that and things are really, really heavy for him right now.
I would say get it out.
Mm-hmm.
I would say speak it. I would say if it's too heavy, know that you don't have to carry it.
Mm-hmm.
You actually deciding to carry it is a choice. You don't have to burden the weight alone.
Mm-hmm.
You can be able to find community, be intentional in your approach, and be honest with what you're feeling. Know that people are out there ready to support you, ready to care for you, and ready to provide a space that allows you to explore what's coming up. And speaking of exploring, remembering that if you don't explore, that you store it in your body. And so if you don't want it to lead to other areas of your life, right, whether that be career, sexually, physically, any other way, get it out. Speak up.
I don't want to make a joke because you just said a lot of really good stuff.
Make the joke. I love laughter.
I
think it's a great coping skill.
I'm going to make the joke anyway. I know as soon as you said sexually, there was like, all right, listen, I'm probably going to have to get this out.
Well, whatever it is, get it out. Speak it up now.
And it's going to mess with the sex life.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it out immediately.
Yeah.
Nah, I like that. I like that though. I was going to make that the last question, but then you just piqued my interest. You mentioned something that I want to touch on real quick. You said it gets stored in the body. What do you mean by that?
Well, it manifests in different ways, right? So it can show up as stomach pains, right?
Okay.
I always have migraines, or there's a racing heart, sweaty palms. I get really, really nervous about big crowds or interacting, right? I notice that I have to go to the bathroom frequently when I'm in certain experiences.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. When it gets stored in the body, it interrupts our physicality. Right.
Yeah.
And it actually can exacerbate some medical conditions.
Oh, that physical and mental connection is so real because you know I was telling, and this may be TMI, but I'm gonna say it anyway. When I experience I know I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety for the day when I go to the bathroom. And I'm not doing I'm doing a number 2. Like I've had that happen where I have a really heavy day where I know it's gonna be a lot and my mind is just racing in the morning and I'll go to the bathroom 3 times before the afternoon. And I'm like, bro, I haven't even eaten.
Right, exactly.
You know, that's wild. And so that for me is a physical symptom that I would have because I'm experiencing anxiety.
I love the reframe.
Yeah, see, I'm right. See, come on.
Yeah, very good, very good.
I'm really mentally, I appreciate you saying that because mentally I'm really doing a reframe in my head because I was about to say when I was like, am I dealing with what's the word? I'm experiencing. Okay, so I appreciate you saying that. I love when guests do that. I've had guests that will literally correct and help me to reframe, and I think that's so important. Because like you said, what we think. With the fire and wiring thing, right? What we think becomes how we feel and what we do. And if we just continue to basically say the same things and think the same things, it's going to continue to create the same response in us.
Exactly. Ayanna Van Zant, she has a powerful quote. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm prolonging it. Ayanna Van Zant has a powerful quote that I always love to quote. But she says, if the cycle continues, well, the cycle continues until the pattern is disrupted. I will continue to get the same thing over and over again until there is an interrupter. If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Right.
But if I notice something, I become educated on it, right? There's an awareness and I become wiser and I actually implement what I learn.
Right.
I have to change the pattern. I get to change the pattern, which ultimately changes the trajectory.
Oh.
It causes a new cycle that will hopefully be in our best interest. And that's in the book as well.
That's in
my book.
Oh, we're gonna talk about your book real quick. Because you just mentioned something, and it reminded me of something that you said earlier about how we should respond to us being vulnerable or having deeper conversations and someone not being receptive to that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that we should basically use that as a moment to educate. And what that reminded me of is you just talked about the being a disruptor, right? In that situation, what we're doing is we're disrupting the pattern because oftentimes, why does a Black man respond to someone else's vulnerability with disgust?
Right.
because that's what he was getting modeled growing
Right.
up.
Exactly.
Right? That's what happened when he was potentially vulnerable. So
Mhm.
that's how he knows to be when other people are vulnerable.
Right. Not even aware that another answer exists. Not even aware that there is another option.
Right, exactly. And so if we don't take those opportunities to educate, what we're allowing is the pattern to continue.
Come on. Yes. That's so good.
Listen,
That's
I'm
so
learning.
good.
I'm learning. I'm learning. Okay.
That's so good.
Samiyrah, please, can you tell people where to find you? You have your book here too. Please talk about the book. Talk about your shirt. Talk about how people can tap in with you, all the things you have going on. This has been a dope episode, and I appreciate you.
Yeah,
so
no,
much.
I appreciate you having me. I think that this is a wonderful platform for all men. I love the fact that you are so vulnerable and that you're able to express yourself. Because when we talk about modeling, like you are doing an exceptional job
Thank you so
at
much.
modeling for the Black man and having understanding what's coming up for him, mind, body, and spirit. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am an author, and my book is Intentionally Minding the Business of Me. It navigates 10 strategies to help build a mindset that links you to your most favorite version of self. In the book, I discuss about self-care strategies for mind, body, and spirit, and also being able to understand that there are a multitude of wellness dimensions, right? Some people just think it's mental health. Mental health is health, right? So mental health is impacted, like we talked about, physical health, occupational health, sexual health. It's all in the book. We talk about that. So understanding the wellness dimensions and how you can show up for yourself. There's also opportunity for us to do some writing and really explore, right? When we talk about self-reflection, there's opportunities in the book for you to do some self-reflection with some prompts and understanding what's coming up for you. What do you need in this moment? How, who, what do you need to be connected with in order to get what you need?
I love it. Listen, I'm gonna make sure you plug it all in.
It's available at Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is available on Amazon.
Okay.
And my shirt, my mental health over other people's opinions. This is my logo. This is my mission statement. I think no matter what, right? So like you said, you walk into a room full of men and you expressing your emotions and the man's calling you a pussy. Yeah, my mental health over other people's opinions. I don't care. Let me give you some enlightenment, right? Let me explain to you why I'm not pussy and actually why I'm strong and how this changes the trajectory of my life and why I'm doing so well right now and while you're in the position that you're in. Let me help you, let me educate you, right? So my mental health over other people's opinions, no matter what.
I love that. And where can the people find you on Instagram, social media? How can they tap in with you on social media platforms? What's your?
My Instagram is Samara Bennett, LCSW. So I hope that you tag that because I know that could be hard for people to understand. Okay, yeah. So Samara Bennett, LCSW. That's currently the only social media platform that I'm on.
Okay, on Instagram.
Yes.
And then for those of you guys that are gonna be like, I want to follow. You spell that Samiyrah, Bennett, Bennett, LCSW. And that is on Instagram.
Yes.
Okay. And then we can look up your name on Amazon and get this book.
Absolutely. And again, the title is Intentionally Minding the Business of Me. You can put it right in Amazon and you can get my shirt through the link in my bio on Instagram.
Okay. Samiyrah, thank you so much. This has been a dope episode.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you are planning an event or you are part of your organization's Black employee group and you are interested in having dope Black mental health professionals or myself come in and do a speaking engagement or a workshop or a keynote address or a panel, please click the link in our bio on Instagram or TikTok, scroll down and click book us for speaking and brand deals and fill out the form available on our website. Once you fill out the form, one of our team members will get back to you about how we can collaborate and create something dope for your organization. This is an unparalleled opportunity. We are currently the largest Black men's mental health platform, and we have a few slots available for our calendar year, and we would love to partner with you to create something dope for your organization if it makes sense for both parties, right? So go to the link in our bio, scroll down, click book us for speaking and brand deals, and fill out that form. If you're not on Instagram, the link should be linked in our description of this episode. And it is also on our website. If you go to expressyourselfblackman.com/speaking-brand-deals. That's expressyourselfblackman.com/speaking-brand-deals. If you are looking for a therapist, a Black therapist, and you've had a hard time finding one, you've jumped from therapist to therapist, or you just don't know how to find a therapist, we are teaching a free webinar. It's completely free, taking you from not knowing how to find a therapist, not knowing where to search for therapists, struggling with finding good therapists for you, not knowing what to look for in therapists, teaching you all of those different things, and also giving you the opportunity at the end of the webinar to be connected with one of our safe haven healers who are Black mental health professionals, so that you do not have to go through the struggles of finding a Black therapist alone anymore, right? So if you're interested in that, you want to get connected with a Black mental health professional at the end of the webinar, or you just want to learn how to find a Black therapist by yourself, you can sign up for the free webinar. It's linked in our bio on Instagram and TikTok. You just click that free webinar link once you click the link in our bio and fill out the form. You can also find it on our website at expressyourselfblackman.com/links and fill out the form there for our next webinar session. If you're not interested in any of that, right, but you know someone that may be interested in it, all we ask is that you please share it. If you want some of the merch that we show on the platform all the time, that we're wearing on the platform all the time, you can shop it at shop.expressyourselfblackman.com. And once again, we just want to say thank you so much for watching this episode. Thank you so much for supporting us. Please, if you are on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, comment. If you're listening to this on an audio platform, please leave a review. It helps us out greatly. Thank you so much for your support. We're wishing you nothing but the best. We're sending you and your family and your loved ones love and light. Peace.
Sometimes I know you feel like you ain't got nobody to speak to. A shoulder to lean on somebody you could preach to. No, you need to hear it, my brother, I love you. We got way too much to live for. We got way too much to live for.